Hi guys, it's car diary time. Look, I gotta remember where the camera is. It is car diary time. Well, today I wanted to come, and I don't think that I've ever fully talked about some of the things that I went through while transitioning into being a mom. I actually started to reflect on it. I believe it was like this weekend. I started to think and reflect on it. And I realized that I don't think I ever really told you guys what was going on, what was happening. I think I may have recorded videos, but I don't think I actually uploaded them at that time because it was just so much going on that I just didn't really want to talk about it. So at the time that I had January, there was a lot of things that was just uncertain. And it wasn't like at any fault of any of myself or Devon, but there was just a lot of things up in the air that I think that we just weren't mentally prepared to go into parenthood. But I also was leaning heavily on my Father, Jesus Christ, to bring me through any obstacles or tests or trials or tribulations that I may be getting ready to go through. I just knew that things were going to come up. I would not know the answer, so I was just going to lean not to my own understanding. Okay, so our plan was Devon's mom was going to come here and probably be here for a few weeks after she was born. And, we were just going to play it by ear from there. By the time I was taking off, I knew I was going to be off 6 weeks exact. And, everything with the pregnancy had been good. So everything should be fine. And we were going to have her and things were going to resume. He was going to work and I was going to go back to work. And, his mom would probably leave. In which we was like, well, maybe we can get her to stay. And just being silly, foolish, not understanding what was really happening to us, I guess. So day rolls around, April 22nd rolls around, and I have to get induced because I started to show signs of a little bit of preeclampsia. Had no issues prior to that appointment, my 40-week appointment. I had no issues of high blood pressure or anything before that. My blood pressure shot up and everything. Like, I went the week before, everything was still normal. Went for the 40-week appointment, everything was haywire. So, got induced. They're still checking me once I get in the hospital, checking me once they induce me. Nothing is happening. I'm not dilating. I'm not progressing in any way. So that morning, I want to say about 6 a.m. on the 23rd is when the doctor was like, look, we're going to have to go ahead and get her out of here. Things are getting worse. Your blood pressure is not coming down at all. In fact, it's actually going up. So at that point, the Holy Spirit had already told me, this is what's getting ready to happen. So just be okay with it. And it's fine. And for me, I was okay with having a C-section. Had I done enough research for a C-section? No. So I just knew that they cut you open, they shoot you in your spine, to numb you, and that's pretty much all I really knew. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know of any kind of things that can happen afterwards, all these different things. I had no idea. Nothing. I didn't do research or nothing. Ignorant on my part, I know. So we start all the stuff to get my C-section. We have the C-section. Boom. That evening, I believe is when it all started. I started passing out randomly. Come to find out that some women are allergic to, I believe it's magnesium that you have to get when you have a C-section. I believe it's magnesium. Not very many, but some women are allergic to the magnesium. And hello, nice to meet you. I'm allergic to the magnesium that they had me on for 24 hours straight. Yeah. So I would just faint randomly the entire 3 days. No, I would say 2 days from having her. The night, starting that night, then the next day, and I think that night was the last. So maybe about 24 hours span. I fainted maybe at least 3 times. Thankfully, I was not holding January at any of those points. The first time I didn't know it happened, and then the second time I kind of felt myself going into fainting. And so Devon had to call the nurses. He knew to call the nurses, and by the time they got to the room, I had already fainted. So they had to get me back up and get me going. And so I was able, and then the last time I was able to, like, okay, I'm going in again, like, call them, and boom, they was there by the time I fainted. So that was that. We found that out. So, you know, I'm like, okay, Lord, you're gonna see me through this. I'm not gonna stress, and I'm not gonna worry, because I have this baby that's kind of like taking my attention off of everything that's wrong with me. And I'm just gonna follow what the doctor said and keep it moving. So we go home. Thankfully, as we get home, my mom came that day because Devon's mom couldn't make it. So my mom came home the day. She actually arrived at the same time we got home with January. And I'm trying to also recount everything that I wanted to tell you guys, because this probably will be multiple parts, by the way. I end up getting home. Couldn't go upstairs, of course, because I had the C-section. I really didn't feel, I don't know if I can say like myself or what the proper description of that is, but I will say that there was clearly a hormonal imbalance going on within myself. I could tell it, but no one else could. Like, I just felt off. But I also was like, okay, I'm focused on this baby. You know, maybe it's all of these new things going on. My body has to readjust. All these other things. Anyways, so, you know, I had her on a Thursday, and then that Monday rolled around. I think I got released that Saturday. Monday rolled around is when she went to her first appointment. It was either Monday or Tuesday. She went to her first appointment. That was fine. That went well, and everything was fine. And then I think we did a 2-week appointment. My mom stayed with us a week. So when she left, January had, I think, a 2-week appointment where Devon and I went to that. Of course, I didn't drive to it, but Devon and I went to her 2-week appointment. As we left her 2-week appointment, I went to the bathroom. And this may be a little graphic, by the way. I go to the bathroom and I squat over the toilet. I didn't even think about what I was doing or anything. I literally just had to go to the bathroom really bad. And so I went to squat over the toilet and started to see quite a bit of blood. And I tell Devon, and he's like, okay. He's like, you know, could it just been, you know, just bleeding vaginally? Or, you know, what exactly was it? I said, well, we're going to figure it out when I get home. By the time, because her office is not far from my house, if not even 10 minutes, not even, I want to say maybe 5 to 7 minutes from our house, if that. Anyways, we get to the house. I am soaked in blood. Like, entire bottom of my, I think I had on a dress because I couldn't fit my pants. I think I had on a dress. All of that soaked. So I'm like, oh God, I don't know what just happened, but things is not right. We call my doctor. She immediately says, you need to come in here right now. I get to the doctor, to my OB, and to save my life right now, I can't think of the terminology, but it is basically where when you have a C-section and they close you up, sometimes a pocket forms underneath that incision. And so that pocket had formed. It could have very well healed on its own. If it would have healed slower, but it could have very well healed on its own. But probably had she noticed it, she probably would have done the same thing. She probably would have reopened it anyway. So anyways, by me squatting, I basically forced the fluids that was in that pocket out. So basically my incision came open a little bit. It was very small, but it was flowing like a lot. Thankfully, I didn't need like a blood transplant or anything. I didn't lose that much blood, but it was still quite a bit of blood. Like she said, I probably could have passed out, or something to that effect. So she's like, okay, you have to be, basically you got to start coming here every 3 days at first? I want to say no, it was every day at first. She was like, you're gonna have to come up here. Mind you, Devon is back at work. I'm the one staying home. We don't have no family here. All of my friends are working, so I had to try to figure out what the heck was I going to do. So mentally, that was very, very stressful. I went ahead and started going. Devon watched her clean, because basically what I was going every day was for her to go in, clean out the pocket, and basically stuff this gauze, medicated gauze, inside of the pocket. And I'm trying to make this not as graphic as it really was. Not as to stuff the medicated gauze in the pocket. And I'm trying to think, was it something else? And then I think I just had to put like pads or something over it. I can't remember what was over it, but I want to say it was like a pad that I put over it. Mind you, I'm a big girl, so it's not like my stomach is flat. I have a belly. So trying to make this all maneuver and work well. And she was like, it mainly needs to get a lot of air. And then one of the other requirements is I had to take a sit bath before I even came to her, and take the gauze out myself before I came to the office. You guys, I have a 2-week-old baby that I can't really let out of my sight. Like how? And I'm the only one at home during the day. How am I going to do this? And this is a time where she's up. Like, because January got into a groove relatively early on her timing, her feedings, and when she was up, when she was asleep. Like, she got into a groove fairly early. When we got home, it was a little bit haywire, but she pretty much figured it out. Devon sees how she fixes the pocket. He's like, look, instead of you going every day, how about I do it? And so I'm like, can you do this? Like, this is a lot to do. Do you feel like you're okay? So he's like, yes. So Devon decides that he's going to start doing it for me daily. She just wrote a script. I got all of the medical supplies I needed. She gave me plenty at the house, that she could from the office, and, get everything situated. And then he did it for me. You guys, when I tell you that's love, because I'm going to be honest. This is an incision where say for instance, this is my stitching, right? Like, say for instance, this is my stitching right here. It was open at the very end. You have to stick stuff in there and go behind basically my skin, clean out this pocket where it had been formed. He had to go in there. Mind you, I'm going to be totally honest. This is not something that's going to smell okay when you see it, even within a 24-hour period. I would say within about a 12. I couldn't change it no faster than that, because it took at least 40 minutes to get this done. Devon I didn't have medical supplies to cover me doing this basically twice a day, and 2, Devon ain't got that kind of time. He was going to work and everything too. So my mom comes back week 3. She's like watching this happen. She's like, oh my God, Tina, like, I don't know, maybe you should, maybe, do you need to be back in the hospital, because I just feel, mind you, I'm still not feeling well. Like, I don't know how to say whether it's well or what. I am still feeling hormonally imbalanced. Mentally, I'm not well. I would almost say it was probably a bit of postpartum depression. I never really thought about hurting me or January, but I was just depressed about everything going on. Because she was like, well, you're not going back to work in 6 weeks. And I'm like, whoa, I am the sole person working for our household. Devon was still working, but we got word at the same time that his job was going to be ending when I was supposed to go back to work. So I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do. How are we going to pay these bills? How are we going to, be able to function? Because at this point, we had planned for these 6 weeks, y'all. We had planned for 6 weeks. We had enough to carry us through those 6 weeks. Beyond that, things was about to get real sketchy. My mom was a complete angel. A complete angel. She took care of different bills for me. And when it came down to like the rent, I'm just like, ain't nobody gonna be able to pay this rent but me. Like, this is my burden. Like, I don't know what to do. I spent so many days in that house crying and praying and crying and praying and praying and crying that I just didn't know what else to do. All I could do was pray at that time, because I didn't know what else. I didn't know what was getting ready to happen. And I'm like, Lord, don't let them put me out of this house with this barely 3-month-old baby. Not even 3 months. She wasn't even like 2 months out. No, she was, 3-month-old baby. Like, what am I gonna do, Lord? Devon's mother helped us out the rest of the way. Praise the Lord. We was able to put our rent on a credit card we had, which we didn't want to do, but that was the last resort. So we was able to put our rent on a credit card, and then they sent us supplemental money for anything else we needed. His mom did, and then my mom was offsetting some of that stuff too. They took care of like buying groceries. Like, we didn't have all these other things that you don't really think about, that you spend your money on. But when you ain't got none, that's like a whole big deal. You know what I mean? So we got this stuff taken care of literally in the nick of time, you guys. Literally in the nick of time for everything that was due. Literally, like, probably the day before or the day of, things got taken care of. So I'm still dealing with my womb stuff. Devon is still being an amazing husband and father. It was amazing just to watch him handle me with my health issues and everything was going on with me. He was very kind, very patient with me. Our relationship took a whole nother level at that time. It was amazing for me to be with January. It took me a while to get my bond with her, because I think it was just my mental state. It took me a while to gain my bond with her. I think probably week 3, 4-ish, probably around week 4 is when I started to bond with her. But before then, I didn't really feel connected. I was breastfeeding during this time and everything, but I wasn't getting that connection with her. So around week 4 is when I got the connection. So 6 weeks come. This is like my turning point, because I'm like, Lord, I got to get ready to go back to work. What is going to happen? Around week 6, the doctor's like, this thing is not healing the way I wanted it to, how quickly I needed to. that she thought it would have. None of these things are happening. And so I'm like, every time she said it, it's like I feel myself getting pushed further and further in the hole every time she said something like that. So she's like, okay. I'm like, so look, I need a real plan of how we're gonna do this, because I really need to get back to work. So she was like, see if they can maybe let you work from home a little bit, maybe an hour or two a day. So I talked to them. They're like, you know, we can figure something out. Like we whatever you need us to do, we're gonna work it out. So the doctor ends up having to open the wound again, like recutting it so it can start the healing process all over again. So that was a setback. So that made the wound bigger, more time for it to heal. That equals more time I need to be at home. So around 6.5 weeks, I go back to her and she's like, I'm not sure here. I'm gonna let you go back to work part-time. How about that? I start back to work part-time, I want to say the beginning of July. So I had her in April. So April, May, June. And then I started back to work, I want to say after July 4th weekend. Yes, after July 4th weekend, in which I had a video that I posted July 4th weekend because we went home that weekend. And then I'll tell you about the other things that was going on in the background during this time as well that affected my mental health in the next car diary. So you guys stay tuned and I'll finish the story up, or give you the next segment of this Becoming a Mom car diary. Hope you guys enjoyed this thus far, and I will see you guys in the next one.